Welcome to our ContinuousX podcast, where we solve for X in the SDLC equation. We're in the middle of a conversation with Cliff Berg, co-author of the Agile 2, the Next Iteration of Agile, already in progress. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's so many bits of truth that you went through there. You went from testing, which Mike and I are extremely vocal about how testing, but in order to set up proper tests, you need the proper holistic view of your environment. You're not just testing, like you said, your code. You're testing its interaction with other codes. Is your workload resilient? Can it scale? Is it available? All of those things. Can it circuit break? All these things you have to test. And most contractors are not challenged to do that. They're challenged to get the workload out there and make it functional, not, can it scale? Can it perform? And I think the other part where you said about partnership, the paradigm shift from commercial markets to the public sector is the commercial markets, as you mentioned in an earlier episode, they're based on market share. If they don't perform, they lose market share, they go out of business. Not from a government perspective, not going out of business. You're just wasting taxpayers' money potentially. But the onus of having a workload not only scale, but evolve and mature and learn, and you're learning along the way to make it better, it's not part of the cultural mindset within the federal government. Now, I met Mark Schwartz before. He was speaking at a conference downtown, and they did a dinner before, and I sat next to him. And everything he said about he's first of all, he's very, he questions. He puts things out in questions. He does not talk to you as being an expert. He asked the community, what do you feel about DevOps? What do you think is failing? What do you think in the public sector needs work? And that stimulated such conversation at the dinner table. He was quite fascinating to be around.
Yeah. He also used to skip levels all the time.
I bet you that didn't go over well in the
yeah. Well, he came from, Silicon Valley. He had gone to Wharton, so he had a business background. And he was involved with a startup, immigration-related startup, and then came to Immigration Service. And so he, I don't know if I should share this, but when I started, he basically.
We have editing capability.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he basically said, talk to who you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone get in your way. Talk to who you want to talk to. And that was very empowering. Yeah.
Yeah. Difficult in the DoD because of the ranking and the pecking order, but possible in other federal agencies. But it's unusual.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, the Agile community talks about Gemba Walking. In the clinical community, in the medical field, there's a movement toward, what they call rounding, where senior managers of practices go on rounds with physicians, like the CEO of a hospital will go on rounds, to experience firsthand, because what you hear from the people on the ground is usually very different from what the reports say that you get.
Yes, I agree, and that's been a problem I've seen with every Agile. Is it not that they're not well-meaning, but the XP was like, you've got to talk to the customer. We had so many customer meetings. I met every single user of the system. In an Agile project, I met the project owner, who was supposed to have represented all of that, but you missed that firsthand knowledge. You've missed to see the frustration on their face. Not everything can be conveyed by a customer owner. When you actually interact with the customers, you learn so much more. And as a developer, it's not that. Yes, some developers you don't want to put in front of other people, but there are personable developers out there. We exist, and you can put them in front of people and talk to a customer, and beneficial things will happen.
Yeah, I mean it's really essential, and this is true whether we're talking about engineering or software development. If one problem with with some of these agile frameworks is they assume this one directional flow of ideas. But if you put engineers or software developers in the setting where the users are, and they actually learn how this product's going to be used, they become a fountain of ideas.
Yeah.
Because they know the technology. If they understand and can really internalize what we're trying to do with this thing, suddenly they have all kinds of ideas. You can't shut them up.
And
that
it's
was
good.
the,
They can break down problems more generally than the general public. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was that was the true tragedy of, I think, the Agile Manifesto, is that it was designed to help developers, and yet it turned them into task takers. When your developer people are extremely smart, you hire them to be that, and then here, build a login page. It's sort of like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But you really want them resolving problems, not just taking orders.
Yeah.
And also, the agile movement had a lot of unintended consequences. That was one of them. The manifesto mentions both the user and the customer several times, kind of interchangeably. But these frameworks like Scrum and so on aren't really true to that. And also, the frameworks and plus the manifesto didn't mention data.
Right.
Well, data is even more important than code. It mentions software, but it doesn't mention data. And today, it's all about data. So we need to bring data to the forefront. And also, it kind of unintentionally axed data architecture and product design.
Right.
And, product design is maybe not so much in the government sector, although maybe. Depends what you mean by product design.
Exactly.
Right. So you're talking about mission effectiveness. That's a specialty, and it's domain specific. People who understand the mission need to conceptualize, what is this thing going to do? How's it going to work? Mm-hmm. And you need a team of people to focus deeply on that and to be trying iterations and to just basically expect that you have some guru, the product owners, just feeding features to a team. So that's not how you do it. No. You need product design or system ConOps design, and so there are ways of doing that in an agile way, but the agile community unintentionally, because existing approaches weren't agile, they were too slow, it got chopped out. Instead of figuring out how to embed it and how to make it fluid and how to make it flow with development instead, it just got chopped out. And data architecture got chopped out. In the early 2000s, it was customary for most large organizations to have data architects who maintained an organization-wide information model.
Yeah.
And the practice at the time was that if a development team wanted to create new software, they had to give all the requirements up front to the data architects and wait a month. The data architects would craft a logical model, and then they'd create a physical model. And 2 months later, they'd say, here you go. And better give me the right requirements because it's going to take another 2 months to change it.
Right.
And that's a non-starter. But, so it got chopped out. But the result is today, companies have data lakes that they can't use because there's a bunch of junk in it and they can't make heads or tails of it. What we need is data architects embedded in the teams who are maintaining data models, domain models, as you go and tentatively, like, okay, I'm probably going to change it, but this looks like it will work for you, and I'm documenting it so that machine learning people will later understand it. And so go with that. And the next day, I think we should really change this a little bit because it's more consistent with this other data over here. Okay, we'll change the code. No big deal. Have it be fluid. Right. And collaborative. And that way it doesn't slow it down. No one's waiting. You can't have people waiting for another group.
Well, Cliff, I think you've whet people's appetite. We're going to end this episode right now because what you're embarking upon is a question that I want to deal with in our next episode, which is how government treats labor categories, skill sets, etc. And I think you're setting the stage nicely on that. So I'd like to thank our listeners and our viewers. Thank you, Cliff, and stay tuned for our next episode where we're going to let Cliff just rock on.
Thank you.